Welcome, friends. My name is Amanda Panacea, and you are listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. Today, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Josh and Joe. They go by the Healing Dudes on social media, and they've dedicated themselves to helping individuals overcome chronic illnesses. They both battled with chronic Lyme for over 15 years.
Hi, everyone.
And
Welcome to
this
episode of the Healer Revolution podcast. I am your host, Amanda Panacea, and today I'm really excited to be able to interviewing the Healing Dudes, Josh and Joe.
Promotes healing
Hi, guys.
and recovery.
Hi,
They have helped countless individuals regain their lives
I'm really
and
excited to hear your
overcome
all's
chronic
story.
illnesses
I think you have a really
through their
fantastic
30-day
message that you're
boot
putting out
camps
there on
and
social
supportive
media.
community.
So I'm excited to hear.
Together, Josh and Joe have created a
we're
brand
excited
that
to be here, and
speaks to
thank
their
you for having
personal
us.
experience
It's kind of
and
been a
their
unique story, I
expertise,
think, like
and their
like I
dedication to
mentioned
helping
earlier,
others overcome chronic
previously,
illnesses
we
is
probably have
both
some
professional
similar
and heartfelt.
stories, but both Josh
They
and I have
inspire
known one
many to
another
take
for
control
over
of their
15
health
years.
and their well-being. And
Not
I know you're
well.
really going to like this
We kind of just
conversation.
became like
So
online
thank you for
friends
listening and
through
stay
chronic
tuned.
illness. Both of us have chronic Lyme and got sick back 15 plus years ago.
Right.
And we kind of just maintained a casual sort of friendship that turned into a business partnership this past year after I relapsed in my health and Josh was kind of struggling. And, just a quick little story, we can get into more details, but when I relapsed, we were kind of like, how can we get better? I'd gotten better in the past, from these alternative type methods. And I ended up moving down to Florida, and Josh and I started holding one another accountable to healing through these mind-body healing tactics, limbic system retraining, all that sort of stuff. And from that, we again started seeing, success and seeing improvements, and we decided to start sharing that with other people and bringing other people on board that were kind of wanting to heal in these same modalities, but didn't really have the community support or didn't have like any sort of accountability partner or whatever. So we started sharing our healing journey, obviously through our Instagram account and other accounts. And then we started these 30-day healing boot camps where we're teaching people how we're healing and allowing them to heal alongside us. So that's a short little version of it.
It caught on pretty quick. It was, both Joe and I were really, really sick. He'd gotten better multiple times. I'd been sick with chronic illness for 16 years with Lyme and pretty much bedbound went from being a successful engineer to not being able to get out of the couch, and have a pretty incredible story that involves my son that I'll get to in a second. But it was cool to connect with Joe and actually have that accountability, because when you're chronically sick, it's difficult to pull yourself out of that hole. And we tried every treatment imaginable, V venom therapy, IV antibiotics, oral. We did traditional doctors, holistics, traveled all over the country and just weren't getting better. And unfortunately, large majority in the chronic illness community, we just didn't see success. And then when we did see success in a certain realm, we started to gravitate towards that. And as we both started to get better, we started these classes, and it was just basically a labor of love that kind of came out of meditation. And we saw people getting better and their lives literally changing before our eyes. We weren't charging for them. And, 4 classes in, we're completely booked. We've done minimal advertising for it. Actually, maybe one live, and that's about it. So it's incredible to watch people heal, but we're not completely better. And that's kind of what's different with us, is we're healing with these people as they heal. So, I went from being completely couched and bedbound and in a wheelchair at times to, I won't say completely thriving, but I'm almost there. I feel like I'm getting my life back, and I'm seeing glimpses after 16, 17 years of being sick. So,
Wow. Yeah. And through the worst of my health, I was still coaching people. And that's something that I had to learn also, was you don't have to be better. You don't have to be 100% to make a difference in someone else's lives. Just being present and listening a lot of times is helpful for a lot of people.
No, I agree. And so I kind of struggled with that too. I was like, how am I going to help people if I'm not, completely better myself? But then someone said something to me that was like, that's part of healing. Like you're going through it so you can show other people how to go through it as well. And, like Josh had said, in the past, I healed myself using these same type of modalities, maybe not in the same exact type of way. And I was like, well, I need to, when we decided to do this, I was like, well, it's like, I'm just going to either show people that it works again or that it doesn't. So that's kind of how this all started. And then, obviously it's been working again for both of us, and we're seeing it with other people as well. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned limbic system retraining. Is that what your focus is on these 30-day
So-
boot camps?
It goes a lot deeper in that, because
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of limbic system retraining programs out there,
Mhm.
and neuroplasticity, limbic system retraining, mind body healing, I mean, are all
Yeah.
kind of catchy phrases right now,
Yeah.
which a lot of
Yeah.
people think. And what we found in doing a lot of these programs, and not knocking any of them, I think they're all great in their own manner, is just that there was no community support, and that as you go through these programs, they're inundated with so much information. And if you're a chronically sick person trying to heal, and you're just smacked with a huge textbook on all these different things that you have
Yeah.
to, it's overwhelming. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people try to do it and burn out. And that's essentially what we had done.
Mhm.
So what we've tried to do is, one, simplify that. And then we've come up with 4 pillars that, while they're simple in nature, a lot of people overlook them. So obviously we believe that by retraining the mind, that you can bring health back to your body. But if you're not moving, it's not, it's not going to work. So movement is super important. So we try to get people out and moving again, and doing yoga and walking. And then we, Joe has his master's in nutrition. So we look at diet. Diet's obviously another pivotal pillar of healing. So, what does your diet look like? Is it an inflammatory diet, or is it anti-inflammatory? Then from there, we use a specific type of meditation. So we have our students meditate in the morning and then at night, but it's a very specific one where you're accessing the subconscious, and then, beginning to visualize where you want to see yourself as a healthy person, and then acting on that. And then the last part is, I think when we become chronically sick, we hit a wall, and, it's traumatic. All these things happen and we lose our life, and we start to put these fear barricades up that prevent us from living. And we have people start to face their fears on a daily basis. So at the beginning of the day, they're writing down what they're grateful for. But what fear are you going to face today that's preventing you from living your life? Yes, you're chronically sick, but you're still capable of living. And we've seen that when people start to go back and live their lives, that they become joyous, that they have goals again, that there's there's happiness in that. And obviously that puts your body in a more optimal state to heal. It's hard work. And I mean, that's just kind of a small nutshell of what it looks like. But we've seen so many people start getting their lives back, and it's a process. Healing's not linear. We're not here to tell anybody that's easy, but if you do the work, it's life-changing. So.
Yeah, I really like those pillars. That makes a lot of sense. And those are some of the things that I've seen as well with just the working on myself, working with other people, some of the other programs that I've done. Dr. Joe Dispenza's work is probably really monumental for you all too.
Big fans.
No, we actually started, so we have done like some of these limbic system retraining programs this past year. When I got better in the past, I didn't follow any sort of programs, but I did learn about Joe Dispenza and some of those type of healing modalities. And a big part of our healing is a lot of his work. And one of the meditations we recommend to, people in the class is a Joe Dispenza meditation that we
also have them read "You Are the Placebo" before they even start the class. So understanding of healing. No, it's cool. And one of the things in our classes is, when we came into the beginning, being completely transparent, we have been since day one. Both Joe and I were in a really dark place, and I was still on the couch, he was on the couch, he's out of work, I was out of work, and we've both been professionals for the majority of our life, and here we are couch surfing, and the depression, all the things that set in. And I really feel like there's a lot of power in accountability. So, are you getting up? Are you meditating? Are you facing your fears? Are you rewiring your brain? Are you doing these things? So once we began to create a community inside of these classes, people literally became dependent on it. And it's great. We're teaching people to break their old habits, create new habits and rituals. And, everybody is assigned a healing partner. So there's that accountability. You're in the ocean with this person in the middle of all your illness, and you have to paddle out. So it doesn't matter if you like the person or not, if you're trying to save your life. And that's what we've seen, is these people, it's not for everybody. And that's why it's a boot camp. I'm not the nicest person in the class. I'm the one that literally will pull you off the couch, and Joe's the nice guy. And the balance works because I care more about your future self and you thriving than your present feelings of, oh, I'm so sick, I'm never going to get better. And we know that mindset keeps people sick. So it's kind of a verbal slap in the face. All right, wake up. It's time to heal. You've been sick. Are you going to waste another 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And we've just found it to be an amazing thing. So a little bit of background about my story. I've been sick, like I said, for 17 years. I got sick in 2006. And I mean, I tried to work through it, and, we're both from DC, and I would commute 2 hours to work, 2 hours back. I would barely make it through work. I would go in my office and hide and literally just fall asleep on my desk and lock my door and hide from the world. And it got to a point where I couldn't drive my car anymore. I drove stick, and I couldn't remember how to put the car in gear. I couldn't remember how to get home. And it was at that point that I realized I can't work anymore. I was going home and crashing at night, and it slowly got worse and worse. I was full-blown agoraphobic, Googling everything. I constantly thought that I was dying. I was trapped in this constant state of fight or flight and just felt sick. And progressively, I became more and more depressed. And as life got worse, I just started having crazy cardiac symptoms, a lot of neurological problems. I developed neuropathy from the waist down, so I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. I was in a wheelchair. I had my son have to stay home and take care of me because I'd lost my insurance, house, cars, all the stuff that I'd worked so hard for because I couldn't work. And he kind of stepped in because we couldn't afford a home healthcare nurse. This is years back, 13, 14 years back. And he took care of me. And literally out of that, it's been a journey of up and down, in and out of the hospital, clinic, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, all these different forms of treatment. And like I said, out of that kind of spawned an amazing story, but never really seeing any real progress until the past year that we started adapting neuroplasticity and then, movement. And what I'd always kind of been a figure in the Lyme community for helping patient rights, and kind of stepped away because stress is obviously a huge part of why we feel sick, and started kind of diving into where are the people that are getting better. They're obviously not in the community. They're not surrounded by negativity, and, realized these people are moving. These people are facing their fears, their diet's on point, and, there's some form of neuroplasticity. And these seem to be the people that were consistently getting better. And that's kind of what led us down this road.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Yeah. So many years of being bedridden and not being really able to function at all. What was the biggest change that, the turning point for you? Was there just a decision? Was there one thing that you did?
So it's kind of crazy. Like I said, this turns into a huge viral story that happened. I mean, broke the internet big. So, I grew up playing basketball and whatnot. It was huge for me. I got sick. I played in men's leagues before I got sick. And, my son was there, literally took care of me, wheeled me to the bathroom at 8 and 9 years old. I homeschooled him. He was on the couch. That was my homie. We were really cool. And, it got to a point where I'd felt really guilty that he was missing out on his life because he was helping take care of his dad. I mean, he'd bring me my supplements, my medication, he'd make me lunch. And I asked him, I was like, what is it that you would like to do? And he just said, I just want to play basketball in a rec league. And I couldn't drive at the point, my anxiety was so bad and I was so sick. But eventually it got to a point where I was like, if I die doing this, and that was my mindset, I wasn't going to die. I felt like it. It's worth it. So I slowly kind of moved into basketball, and fast forward, bought him a goal. He had several videos that went absolutely viral. Steph Curry, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, in the Golden State Warriors, flew us out to Oakland for him to perform at halftime, and all these crazy events that happen with ending up on Sports Center and talk shows and stuff like that. And it was kind of in a moment where I was having to face my fears abruptly. I wasn't going to deny him this opportunity to meet one of the most popular sports stars in the world. And, that was kind of a point that got me up, and then I sank back down, and realigning with Joe, I think, was ultimately the rope that pulled me out.
There's my story is a little different than his. So I'd gotten sick back in 2004, 2005. And I'd spent about 4 or 5 years pretty much bedridden, quit, couldn't work, couldn't go to school, had to move back in with my mom. And there was a period of 4 or 5 years where I pretty much did every sort of treatment you could possibly think of. I'd get a little better, a little worse, but sometimes would get, completely smacked down, be bed sick and all that sort of stuff for years. And there was a point in my chronic illness where there was a light bulb that sort of went on. I did kind of start doing some neuroplasticity stuff. Like I said, I got better using these same sort of methods, but I didn't follow any programs like DNRS. And I actually want to talk to you about this because there was one of your previous podcasts was like, is it law of attraction? Is it neuroplasticity or something like that? Yeah. So this is kind of aligns with that. But there was a point when I kind of started like meditating, started like visualizing myself healthy and doing these mind-body healing tactics. And it was kind of working, but there was a point when I got so fed up with being sick that I realized I was actually responsible for keeping myself sick. I was waiting for some sort of outside source to get me better. And there was a point I was like, okay, I've been sick for 5 years. I've dealt with some of the most uncomfortable symptoms, neurological stuff, the depersonalization, chronic depersonalization, anxiety, depression, vision problems, dizziness. None of these things are going to kill me. Otherwise they would have. I'm going to start living my life, even though I am struggling right now. So there was this light bulb that just switched on, and I was doing the mind body stuff. And then that's kind of where the facing fears, beginning to live part really started helping me. And from there, it was like a year or so of doing all of this stuff, of trying to live while I was sick. My body started healing, and I started healing with the use of just meditation, visualization, exercise, diet, neuroplasticity stuff, and facing fears that I gotten, what I considered completely well. And then obviously I relapsed a couple of times, but I'd seen what it takes to heal. So, but it was that one just like shift, and I think a lot of people need to get there where they need someone to push them there. And that's kind of what we try to do in our classes.
Yeah.
And stuff.
I mean, it's incredibly hard to look at your own faults and even imagine that you have something to do with yourself feeling like crap.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the intention behind doing programs, diets, whatever the intervention is, or whatever the tool is, the intention behind it is more important than the thing you're actually doing. Because if you are just doing this program because I'm broke and I'm sick, I got to get back to work, I just need to feel better, versus I'm the creator of my life and I have all of the power. Like that's two huge different energy states.
Yeah.
And I think trying to show people that shift, because we talked about this, probably, an hour or two before we got on here, is you see, and we see all types of people that come in the class. And it's crazy to think that this is our 4th class, because literally the whole idea for this just came out of meditation. It's crazy. But it's showing people that they're literally in their own way. And when they begin to just get out of it and realize, all right, cool. Like there is no victim. Like you're not the victim. Like if you have the victim mentality, you're going to stay sick the rest of your life. You're never going to prosper. You're never going to have any sort of abundance if you keep that mentality. And unfortunately, we've found that, if there is someone with a victim mentality, they bring the whole energy of everybody around them down. And, we want people that want to heal and want to do the work. This isn't a quick pill that you take. Like self-work and healing is hard work. It's hard as hell. And I mean, that's what I said. We're still healing in the process. And we feel like the last part of our healing is where we heal in front of everybody else. And if you were to look at for the people that know me, look at my life, 2 years ago compared to now, like it's night and day. And I fully believe I'm going to get that. And then just coming out of this and creating a business and a brand and doing it, knowing that our intentions are to help people. is a beautiful thing. But that's one of the biggest things that we talked about, is that victim mentality holds so many people back from their healing, because I think out of the victim mentality, there's doubt, there's all these different things, and belief is such a powerful tool when you believe in what you're doing. You know, it rolls back to the placebo effect. And, you know, even if you are doing some form of traditional treatment, if you believe in what you're doing, I think that there's a lot of healing in that in and of itself. And mindset on this journey, even outside of healing and life and creating goals and stuff, is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of heavy stuff. I want to ask you guys some heavy questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the trigger for your illness, what do you think that was? Was it like chronic stress from your job, living out of alignment?
I think, well, obviously both of us have chronic Lyme disease, but I think, you know, we realize that it's more than just getting bit by a tick. I think there is a lot to living out of alignment, living not in your true purpose. I think stress plays a big factor, you know, stress in terms of like what you're dealing with in life and what you're putting in your body and all that sort of stuff. When I got sick, I was 21 at the time. You know, it was a long time ago. I'm 39 now, but I was in college. I was, you know, not really caring too much about life. I was drinking a lot. I was eating like crap, you know. I got bit by a tick, didn't really think much of it. You know, a few months later go by, I start developing all these symptoms. I think it was a combination of all of the stress that I was living with in life, along with the tick bite, you know, that ultimately got me sick. And I think people overlook how much stress plays a factor in your health, and that threshold of like how your body can handle environmental stuff. Like there's some you know, there's millions of people that get bit by a tick that have Lyme disease and never experience any symptoms, because the body is made to function and stay in homeostasis and things like that, as long as we take care of it, even with environmental factors or whatever. So I think it was a combination of things for me that the ultimate led me to get sick. But when I've relapsed, every time, it's always been a combination of different stress that I put on myself, body, you know, with drinking, with, you know, not being the most kind to my body, with work stress, with relationship stress. And then when I relapsed this past year, I got COVID, and then it was just all that sort of, you know, made me relapse completely. So
yeah, and I think for me too, stress was the common denominator. I too had gotten bit by a tick, had out of season flu, stereotypical case. Felt like I got better. Took a business trip to Raleigh. I was selling a house at the time. I had a huge mess up at a job. I worked for the federal government and was only 26, but I'd been thrusted in a senior engineer position. So had a monumental mistake, and the stress that came from that. And I mean, I was eating McDonald's every day, and same thing, drinking. And when I was 26, I was being young and wasn't taking care of my body. And I believe that, you know, movement, diet, you know, there's a spiritual component, you know, that all these things, when you're not taking care of your body, you're more susceptible to, you know, not only just Lyme disease, but fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. I think they all fall under the same umbrella as far as how you get better. But, you know, I felt like as I began to align myself, you know, mentally, spiritually, physically, that's when we, you know, started to heal. But it was same, a lot of stress from work. You know, I was working, getting calls at 2:00 in the morning. I was selling a house at the time. My wife and son were back up in DC trying to sell a house, and it was just stress. And I remember being in my office, blacking out one day and waking up in the hospital, and that's kind of where it started. So
yeah. And I tell everyone that I work with, so when you're under stress, your body's always going to prioritize addressing the stress. And during that time, your immune system shifts, and it's not prioritizing fighting off bacterial infections. That's not on the list. So a lot of times the symptoms start in the healing phase, and when you come out of that massive stressor. And I just had a client the other day, something happened with her dad. It was a huge stressor. 2 days later, she got COVID. And I was like, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep. No, I completely agree. And, you know, that's something we teach other people is that you cannot heal in a state of chronic stress, fight or flight, all of that sort of stuff. The immune system, the body just can't handle all of that, and also support healing your limbic system, your nervous system, and ultimately your body. So no, I completely agree.
Yeah, and that's why we're pretty militant about telling people, like, hey, look, if you've got people in your life, I don't care if it's your parents, your spouse, whoever, and they're keeping you sick, your health is more important than that. If you've got to cut them off for a period of time and say, hey, look, for these next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, I'm prioritizing my healing. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And then I think that it comes down to how much you value yourself and value healing. It's stress is just, we see it in everything that we do. Every single person we've talked, well, where was the downfall? I had a super stressful moment, or I had a traumatic event, and then it snowballs after that. So
Lyme always has a trigger.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Awesome. I have another really big question. So this one, I'm sure you guys also talk about with the people in your boot camp, are the secondary gains. So those things that are subconscious that are keeping us sick, that are really uncomfortable to admit might be happening. And these are like all of the ways that we're actually playing that role in keeping us sick. What were your all secondary gains?
What is that term you call it?
Secondary gains.
gains.
So
Yeah. So I think, for a lot of people, when we become sick, it's partially we feel like, I think subconsciously we deserve to be something, we did something wrong or whatever, not like living in alignment in life, or that we don't deserve to be sick. We see a lot of people in our groups that don't, like, they feel like they can get better, but they don't have the belief to get better. And I think, for me, when I was sick back in the day, I consciously believed like, oh, I can get better, but subconsciously I didn't believe that I couldn't get better. And I had to address why that was. Like, was there something that I was getting out of being sick? Was there, I don't know. I still don't absolutely know what the reasoning is to this day, why I couldn't feel like I deserved to get better or whatever. But I think a lot of people struggle with that. In terms of like secondary gains, I don't know. That's a hard one for me to answer. I think I'll speak it for a different perspective. It's not necessarily the gains. I'll look at it from like a spiritual perspective. When we talk about we're not living in alignment with our like true purpose in life. Like, again, I think part of the reason I got sick was because I was going down a path that was not healthy for me, and the illness or whatever was partially me, having to stop my life and course correct and move into more alignment of like who I am and what I'm meant to do on this planet in a spiritual perspective. And I know that part of my mission is to help other people. And prior to even this relapse, I was just working as an art director in advertising and really not living in my true purpose, kind of stuck in the rat race of all that. And I think that part of me relapsing was to recognize that even more so and just completely course correct. So
and kind of pulling off what Joe said, for me, who I am now and who I was then are two completely different people. And I think that as we begin to heal, like, I'm even friends that I've had in the past are like, dude, you're not the same. Well, obviously not changed, because I was that rat on the proverbial wheel, just constantly going to work, doing these things. So I don't even know if I had initial thoughts. I was so programmed in society to get up, go to the gym, go to work. That was, I lived a programmed life. I'd mow my lawn on the weekends. I'd go to the bar and have beers. Like, that was it. And there was no substance to life. And, I think so often, people have a hard time understanding illness and stuff like that. And while I regret the years that I've lost being ill, I think that the perspective that it gives you on life, becoming awake to what actually life is, I think is invaluable. Like, I would never go back and say, hey, I didn't wish I'd gotten sick, and go back into living in an illusion of a life, because I think that, ultimately when tragedy strikes, be it trauma, illness, whatever, life stops.
Yeah.
Life completely stops, and it forces you to literally internalize everything. What's happened in your past, what traumas have you had? And when you're running on the wheel, you're not thinking about that stuff. You're literally chasing the cheese and trying to get money in the next car and the next house, and be in certain social circles. And then you realize that none of it matters. And I told myself always this when I was sick, is I would trade places with a homeless man living underneath a bridge if I could help my health back.
Yeah.
And that everything else was an illusion, and that I had all these thoughts of what I thought life would look like if it was great, and now what that looked like in my 20s, and now I'm 43, I think, look completely different. And that wouldn't have been there if I'd never experienced chronic illness. So
Yeah, I totally agree that our subconscious, our spiritual beliefs, they slow us down to course correct. That's exactly what I think. I think a lot of times also people will get stuck in like a chronic illnesses, because somehow it's validating the pain they may have been suffering from, or the pain that maybe was inflicted on them when they were younger, big traumatic events. And that again would go back to your like identity as a person, and holding on to that old identity that you had versus recreating yourself, creating the person that you would have been if nothing bad ever happened to you.
Right.
Totally agree. I think there is like a sort of trauma component to chronic illness in a lot of people. I know for certain, like growing up, I suppressed a lot of like emotions, and there was, I think a lot of people with chronic illness have childhood traumas and things like that may have happened or whatever that become suppressed or whatever, and become in the unconscious of like why they don't feel deserving, to be healthy, or don't deserve great things in life. And so I think we have both become aware of that, over the course of our own illness, but then we also see it with other people with chronic illness. There's some sort of blockage, as well as, like a stressful event, or, beginning bit by a tick or whatever. There is some sort of unconscious beliefs around feeling worthy to be healthy and have good things in life that usually I think stem from childhood stuff that, we've both noticed.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then something else I've noticed in regards to beliefs, because I was first pretty predominantly, well, at first I was a mental health counselor, but then I grew as like more of health coaching. And then as, I got better and discovered more of the mind body approaches and kind of made a full circle back to the emotional side of things, I really noticed that people's beliefs around what type of practitioner was going to help them, kinds of supplements they had to take, what kind of diets they had to take, that was also holding them back, thinking they had to do like A, B, and C before they would get better. And I'm like, no, forget all that.
Right. Yeah.
Forget everything I used to talk about.
It's funny because, and that's one of the things that we encourage is, unfortunately, the internet has been such a curse in this realm, because people, when you're sick, you want answers, you want instant gratification. And we tell people to get off support groups right away. Like support groups for chronic illness are a cesspool of just terrible thoughts and thinking, and
horrible.
You're literally having to redo, years and years of traumatic questions and answers. And then you start to relate to other people's traumatic events, and you start to take those on because you're in a heightened state of just an absolute mess. So, that's one of the first things we do is like, hey, pull from that, stop Googling, stay off the internet, focus on healing, like literally put blinders on, so that the only thing that you see in front of you is your healing. And what we teach too is not just to heal for the sake of healing, but create a life, create an abundant life for yourself. Anything that you want in life is obtainable, and not even within reason, without a reason, just keep dreaming big. And the reason that people don't achieve is literally fears. And that's why we try to walk these people through breaking down your fears, because I think a lot of those things that they've learned, like you were just talking about, become fears and barriers that prevent their healing.
Yeah. And just to echo that a little bit more, just what, Josh was saying is, there's so many rabbit holes you can go down, in the chronic illness community. If, one person thinks, mold, the other person's like, you have viruses, another person's like, you have the MTHFR gene. And we've already gone all that, 15 plus years in chronic illness. We've gone down those rabbit holes multiple times, and being like, one person will be like, oh, are you in mold? Another person's like, oh, you might have MTHFR. There's so many ways to go down. And what we want to do is have people stop that, because ultimately it doesn't matter what you do if you're not focusing on the mindset, the mind body stuff, and you're just waiting for some sort of answer outside of you to fix you. It's not going to work. You're just going to get stuck in that traumatic loop of like, I need to do this, I need to do that. And we have seen it doesn't work.
And then it turns into avoidance behavior, where people have, and I've had this, I had an allergic reaction. So I avoided so many different foods, and I was exposed to mold, and then I had heavy metals. And it literally, not to say that there's not validity behind these, illnesses and stuff like that, but there's no cures for these things, literally, like, and it puts you in this traumatic thinking loop of, never getting better, reaching for the next treatment, the next cure. And we fully believe that you cannot heal your body until you heal from here up. Like, it's just, it's impossible. You can take whatever form of treatment, and, with all chronic illness, with mold, with heavy metals, with stuff like that, obviously get out if you're in a bad situation. But these things literally become obsessions for people, whether it be diet, chronic illness, heart disease, all these different things, and those illnesses become their identity. And, we see it all over Instagram where they put Lyme in their name, or Lyme, I'm a Lyme warrior or whatnot. No, you're not. You're a human being that's healing, that has the ability to have life again, if you believe that. And then if you work towards it. And unfortunately, we've had some static in the community, but, you're telling people that you can think yourself better. Yeah, I mean, essentially your body your body was designed to heal itself. I mean, if you're sitting and seeing these doctors that are telling you, oh, this might work, most of the people we see get worse. I mean, there are some that get better, and we're obviously not doctors, but after being in this for 17 years and trying all these different things and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to literally find the unlock, is you are the medicine. Like, it's such an eye-opening thing.
And it's a mind fuck.
Right. Exactly.
No, it really is. And what was I going to say? So I was going to talk about add on to that, but I forget. So
no worry. Yeah, I think there's a good balance, because there are lots of people I've worked with who have gotten substantially better by making some changes and doing some supplements and changing some things that they were doing. But again, it goes back to those belief systems and that intention, Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't disagree. If people are doing antibiotics or whatever their doctor is suggesting, obviously we're not doctors, we don't offer medical advice. But believe in what you're doing, believe, don't just take it. I definitely take some supplements and stuff like that for nutrition and stuff. And, if you're in a toxic environment, obviously get out. But I think, unfortunately, when you go to see a doctor, the last things they address are diet, movement, mind, body, those are taken out. So the pressure is to try this new experimental drug, or here, get this PICC line, or here, try this new herbal protocol. And that's all well and good, but there's never an emphasis on healing the mind. And, you can take all those drugs and whatnot, and if you don't heal the trauma of getting sick, and you don't fix those toxic thinking patterns, then I just don't see any hope for people getting better.
Yeah, I like how you brought that up too, the trauma of being sick, because there is a trauma that happens when you're told you have Lyme disease, or mold is making you sick. And then all of a sudden you get terrified of all the things and go down all those rabbit holes. And I think that's just part of it. I don't think anyone's going to avoid it. Like, if you told me to not do that back then, I would have been like,
no. I think it's like something we all have to go through, especially when we're chronically ill and we're looking for answers. I think most people, I don't know if you went through this, where you go, a year or however many years undiagnosed or misdiagnosed, or just told you have anxiety, and you want to find some sort of reason why you're experiencing all of these crazy symptoms. And we went through that or whatever. So when you finally have that answer, like, oh, I have Lyme disease, you latch onto it. You're like, no, this is now mine. This is who I am. And that's understandable reason, because most of us were probably told we're just crazy. So you're like, no, I have Lyme disease,
Yeah.
and to a certain extent, that's a good thing. But
You
then
feel validated.
then you feel validated, but then
Mhm.
it becomes your identity so much that it's hard to shed that. So like Josh said, yeah, that's a big thing. When I first got, better, after being sick for years, I was like, I'm done talking about Lyme disease. I'm done describing myself as a Lyme. I got out of all the forums. I stopped thinking about my symptoms all the time and focusing so much on my symptoms. And that's what we teach people to do as well.
Yeah. And not to say that we're ever like discounting what someone's going through, if it's mold or if it's Lyme or whatever. We totally understand that there's a real diagnosis there. But I think, instead of people running from doctor to doctor, and it becomes a frantic, obsessive behavior. And then there's avoidance and all these different things that come. Like, begin to heal your brain and then see where you're at. Like, get to a baseline, calm your nervous system down, and see where you're at. And then from there, evaluate, maybe see a doctor in that industry. I fully believe this is 100% the way to heal. And what's great behind this, because I'm very skeptical, I was an engineer before all this, and I needed to see the science, and the science is overwhelming behind this. So much science to support, the mind healing the body. And, 60, 70 years ago, we didn't live in a chronic state of stress and just overflow of information and needing to be attached to so many different things. So I think when we're able to hit the pause button on life and make our priority healing, once we get to a baseline and we're off the wheel, we're out of that, thinking loop of traumatic thoughts, and we're able to evaluate where we're at, then I think it's better to, okay, I'm here, I still have X, Y, and Z, let me see where I can go from here. But I fully believe, for chronic illness specifically, that, there's no one size fits all approach. But I do believe that once this part is healed and the body begins to heal, that's a great starting point, and maybe even an ending point for some people. And even if people can get to 70% better, 80% better, that's better than being couch bound or sick or struggling through getting every part of life. I think that when you do this, it becomes a lifestyle change. It's not just something that you do one day and say, hey, I'm going to meditate, exercise, eat healthy, and then, once I get better or marginally better, I'm going to go back. No, like, literally your life shifts. You're now awake. You're now responsible for your physical, mental, and spiritual health. That, it is. And it's, I think that it doesn't even become a task for the people that become truly awake to it, because it's realize that it's part of your healing. I now love meditating. I never thought, 10 years ago that I'd be sitting in a beanbag chair meditating twice a day, but it's become such a staple in both my physical and mental health that now, it's once you see the beauty and the shift in your mind and accessing the subconscious and watching your brain literally reprogram in front of yourself, and you do the work, it's amazing to watch.
For me, when I first got sick, it was, I'll give up drinking for a bit. And then once I'm better, I'll just, we'll start going out to dinner again. And of course, I never got better thinking with that mindset until it was like, oh no, I get it now. That's over. That version of me is done. I got what I wanted.
Hi, my name is Amanda Panacea, and you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This is a community for self-healers, biohackers, practitioners, and any other helping professionals. You're in the right place if you're seeking conversations about how pain becomes passion, the connection between physical, energetic, mental, and our spiritual self, finding your body's ancient wisdom, the latest biohacking technologies, clinical research, and if you just want to nerd out about complex biochemistry and quantum physics. But this is also for entrepreneurs who seek infinite abundance and a supportive community. So pour a cup of King coffee or Sisters tea and let's join the revolution. Have you had to give up coffee for health reasons? Maybe because of the stress it was putting on your adrenals, maybe because it was messing with your sleep, maybe because you felt terrible after drinking it, or maybe because you were told coffee had mold on the beans and you needed to stay away from mold. Well, what if I told you there's an organic, mycotoxin-free, quality coffee that contains reishi spores or Ganoderma lucidum? Ganoderma lucidum helps to modulate your immune system, adapt to stress, balance hormones, and doesn't give you the jitters or shakes like regular coffee used to. Sounds too good to be true, right? It's called King Coffee by the company Organo. And King Coffee came into my life when I was struggling with chronic hives, full body eczema, and mast cell activation syndrome. I hadn't drank coffee in years because it made me feel anxious, shaky, and clammy. So I had no expectations that drinking King Coffee would be any different. However, I decided to give it a try after seeing lots of amazing practitioners talk about the benefits of reishi online. I tried a 7-day sample and the chronic hives were gone by day 5. I was in shock. After that, I dove into the research on reishi and found that there are over 3,000 peer-reviewed PubMed clinical trials using reishi Ganoderma as an intervention. The company Organo also has a patent protected on their harvesting process. They double crack open the spore shells, which makes them up to 80% more potent than the body of the reishi, which is usually used in other reishi products. This also makes the spores 90% more bioavailable for your body to use. If you would like to try King Coffee, visit thehealerrevolution.myorganogold.com, or for a 7-day trial, you can check out my link tree on my Instagram at Amanda Panacea.
I've learned that the hard way a couple of times. Like I said, I did all of these things to get better multiple times. Like, when I was sick, I quit drinking, went into this really healthy lifestyle. But then when I got better, I went back into the rat race of just normal living. And I kind of forgot that I was like, I had a chronic illness in the past. Then I would go back into, drinking a little bit more. I was in my 20s and 30s working in advertising. Like, I don't know if you know what that lifestyle is like, but people drink all the time. They just do whatever. You eat like crap, and I went back to that. And then I went back into a stressful environment, and I forgot all the ways that I healed myself. And so I relapsed like in 2015. And then like I got better again after that. But the last few years, I was kind of falling back into those same sort of patterns and behaviors that were not helpful. And like I said, there was that tip of the iceberg, which was COVID. I was getting sicker again, but COVID just pushed me over the edge and made me fully relapse. And that's what, I want to stress to so many people. And we stress it in our boot camps. And when we talk to people, it's like, this has to be for the rest of your life. You got to change your lifestyle behaviors for the rest of your life if you want to stay healthy. Like, we've obviously been chronically ill with whatever, Lyme disease, some people with lupus, MS, chronic fatigue syndrome, whatever it is. And so we have that, our bodies are fragile in a sense that we have already seen that we can get chronically ill. So it's easier for us to now relapse and get chronically ill. At least from my own experience, that this type of stuff that we're doing is really, it's important to make an entire lifestyle shift to healthy and stay healthy.
Yeah. And I think because you had done it before, your psyche knew like, okay, we're going down the wrong path now.
Exactly.
We got to recalibrate. Here we go again.
Yep.
So you mentioned meditation being a big staple and how you never thought that you would be meditating 10 years ago. I also had a impossible time meditating. My brain just never, ever, ever stopped. And, I knew it was good for you. I saw the research and it was pretty impossible. So I'm good now after a lot of practice and a lot of nervous system retuning. But what advice would you give to someone who's still struggling with meditating?
Yeah. So I was that, I hate labels. Everybody uses ADHD, like literally, like my mind's going constantly. I'm super hyperactive. I'm always talking. So in the beginning, I would sit and I would try to meditate, and I would literally think about squirrels running up the wall, trying to paint things, like the most bizarre things ever that have no relevance to what I'm going through at that moment. And I think the important thing to remember, and especially for people that do the class and stuff like that, we teach them consistency. One is key. Meditation is a practice, meaning, the more you practice it, the better you get at it. And ultimately, I think a lot of people are familiar with this method, but when you begin to meditate, when we fight those thoughts, when we're trying to battle those thoughts from coming into our mind, they come in stronger. And what I've seen just work for me, and I think Joe's the same way, is just observing them. All right, cool. Hey, what's up, dude? And just letting it go. Like just let it go. And they might come in waves. I might be thinking about healing or manifesting our future and creating this business. And next thing you know, then my kid put air in his tire, or do I got a kid outside chewing on a crayon or something like that? And that's literally what my mind was like. Now I'm at a point in meditation, and I've been doing it consistently for about 8 months, where I can meditate on the fly like that. Like I don't need a talk down. I don't need anything like that. I will literally go sit in the corner of a room and meditate. And the realization of getting to this point is at the end of our first class, Joe, I had a fear of flying. I had a fear of leaving my town. Like my cage was still small, and I was facing these fears that we develop when we become chronically ill. And I wasn't getting on the plane. I was a mess. I literally sit down in the middle of the airport, cross my legs with everybody around me, didn't care what was going on, and started meditating right there. And it was the most bizarre thing that I've ever done at all. But if I didn't do that, I was going out to Vegas and Utah to go to Zion National Park and facing a lot of fears. And the realization that if I can shut out the world and all these people around me and access this type of peace and get into my subconscious mind, I think it was there that I was like, all right, cool. I'm not battling these thoughts anymore. I'm not going to war. Like, if squirrels want to run through my mind, that's totally fine. I'll let them run, and I'll watch them, and they'll go out, and that's it. And now that I've gotten into it and I practice it, I don't really struggle. There could be kids screaming on the outside of our office right now, and I'm trying to meditate. And generally, for the most part, I'm still able to stay engaged because I don't hold on to thoughts that don't serve me. I just, as they come in, I observe them. I don't try to fight them, and I just let them go. And the thoughts that I do want to think on, the things that I do want to program in my subconscious mind, that is where I try to shift my focus and then try to, essentially laser down on that.
Yeah. For me, the visualization meditations were much more effective than like just have no thoughts. That's pretty impossible.
No, we're not the type of people that think just meditate, try to quiet your mind or whatever. Our meditations that we recommend, that we have and use, are the guided visualization ones. And of course you're still going to think those thoughts, but I also am of the mindset that like meditation is not about not just quieting your mind and being blank. Like I've never been able to do that. It's about being aware and redirecting your focus to elsewhere. And that's kind of what we try to teach. And that's what's helped me, is like when I find myself, my thoughts like going in a place that is like not productive, like, I bring it back to focusing on body awareness, breath, and then redirecting that focus towards, visualizing my healthy self, my healthy future, what I'd like to be doing in life and things like that. So,
So with your program, you have like the guided meditations already set up for people, or do you do them live?
Yeah, so we use one of Joe Dispenza's ones just because, some of his meditations are real hard to get into. I don't know if you listen to any of them. Some of them are out there. Because we're able to get into it, but we've had a lot of students complain like, hey, look, we're new to meditation. His voice is really bizarre. Talking about floating in space. I can't get into that. So we did record a guided meditation. It's something that we're trying to get more into. It's just our schedule's been so overwhelming lately that it's definitely a progress. We've got students in our class that have nicer voices than we do that have been putting together some guided meditations, but it's a specific type of meditation when we do it. And honestly, we're biting on Joe Dispenza a little bit, but how do you envision seeing yourself in the future? And that's not just that, but what do you envision yourself doing? What does it feel like? And, moments of silence, like 5-6 minutes in the meditation, where I've realized once I'm talked down, when I'm able to let completely go, I see myself visualizing our future. And literally it's crazy because we had a vision board in this room that we do meditation in, and there's so many things that we've crossed off there that we've meditated about that have come to fruition. And it's crazy when you begin to follow those thoughts and you write them down, and you realize that your body begins to follow your mind. And this all comes, and this is why I think meditation is so important. We have a lot of people that said exactly what you said, like, I just can't meditate. And this is why I want to, yes, you can. It's just, that's why we do it morning, night. So we have our students meditate in the morning, first thing before they get going. And then at night, again, we have them meditate. And we're hopeful by like the second week, there's 14 meditations right there, or 28.
No, that's 14.
14. Math's terrible. But yeah, 14 meditations in 2 weeks.
Yeah, depends. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 28 if it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Morning and night. Yeah.
I guess you're right.
There's no such thing as a bad meditation. So some meditations I'll be like, oh my gosh, I feel bliss. This is amazing. I want to keep going. And other times I'll be like, this isn't working.
Yeah, that's the thing. Same thing happens here. And that's what we tell people. We do it it's the consistency that is so important.
And showing up.
Yeah, and just showing up, because there are going to be times when there's a lot going on in life and it's hard to get into a good visualization or meditation, but just setting that routine and that behavior that you're going to do it regardless, so that the next day you don't fall off, and the next day you don't fall off, and then a few days and a week's gone by and you've not meditated. So that's why, like with the 30-day boot camps, it's like the reason why 30 days is so important is just to like set that routine so that it becomes a habit, so that now that habit is something that you do regardless of how you feel, what's going on in your life. You carve out that time and for those behaviors, the meditation, the walking, yoga, and all that sort of stuff other stuff we recommend. So it's just like, it's like brushing your teeth, you just get up and do it regardless,
Yep. Beautiful. So how do people join your 30-day boot camps?
Well, we have our website, which they can go to, which is thehealingdudes.com. We also a lot of people reach out to us, via Instagram direct message. Like we'll sometimes put a post up or a story up saying we're, now taking new students or class members for the next class, which is coming up. We usually do that about a week or two out, and then, people direct message us or send us emails
and all the details for the class. And I hate the term testimonials, but these are just literally people that have come out of the class that have experienced stuff, that have done the work. I can't emphasize that enough. Share their stories on there as well. So I mean, Instagram is definitely the best place to get information, and then the website.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I like how it's 30 days, because I think when people are going to do like a program, they put it off even more, because it seems like a big change that they're still not ready. But 30 days is very bite-sized, like not as daunting.
Yeah, and we actually have a lot of people that continue with us that we're now going on our 4th class. People have seen such benefit from it that they started the first one, and now they're like, I just want to keep going, because I'm like, this is really helpful. I love the community vibe. I love just the daily support. We do like, daily support videos, and we have a private, group chat that's all,
the group chat blows up all day.
Surrounding about healing stuff and like, positive encouragement, or if someone's struggling, kind of struggling today, I could use a little support, like, so it's really helpful for a lot of people. Like what we've seen and kind of what we talked about earlier, just having that accountability and that support on a daily basis is so helpful in healing and doing this type of work. So yeah, we have a lot of people that they'll start and then they just want to continue after 30 days. Some people, surprisingly, after 30 days, they've gotten it and they're like, I'm good. Like, and then these people start living their lives and they're like healing, and they'll come back and be like, hey, thanks, this has been amazing. Like, I'm good now,
And these are the people that have done the work.
Yeah, exactly.
So the whole idea in 30 days is we want to give people a solid foundation to begin to build on. Like, we're hoping within 30 days that you've started new rituals and routines, and that you might not feel better in 30 days, and you might see minimal shifts in your health, but you're going to be a happier individual. You're going to be optimistic about your healing and begin to believe on it, and you begin to build on that. But you're only as strong as your foundation. So hoping that they follow that. And this is the last part I'll talk about the class. Is it's become a family environment. Like literally, we've seen everybody in our class laugh, cry, including us, just because it's close, it's intimate. And it literally is like a family environment. Everybody's on the same mission. Everybody wants to heal. And I'll be honest with you, we have no problem for the people that aren't in full belief, that aren't doing the work, that are kind of dragging behind, like, cool, get left behind. We're doing what we can. Like, here's the rope. You can literally choose whether to grab it or not. Like, we can't take your hands and make you hold on, but you're not going to drag down the people that aren't. And we understand that some people are a little more difficult, but ultimately you've got to want to heal, and you've got to be willing to do the work. If that doesn't exist inside of you, you're going to stay stuck. And it goes back to the victim mentality that we talked about. And those are generally the people that we see kind of stay stuck, is, oh, woe is me. Yes, we get it. It sucks. Being sick is not fun, but you literally can heal, So.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in today's culture, there's a big chunk of people who are promoting this victim mentality. And it's so sad. One time, one of my posts got a hold of some social justice warriors website, and they just ripped it apart.
Wow.
We've had that happen too.
We got hammered. We had people try to literally tear our platform down because what did you say? You made a post about.
I said, like there's no magical cure for Lyme disease. You need to do the work. And
we had all these social justice warriors come in and say, how dare you minimalize my stuff? Like, look, I get it. I've been in this for a long time, but you stay in that victim mentality, you're going to stay down. I get it. You don't feel great, but if you can heal from here up, that's a bonus. That's a plus. You can have joy again. You can have happiness. You can have peace, and then see what else happens. I believe that the body heals itself, but we were called some.
Yeah, we were called some pretty
some pretty gnarly names. So.
And unfortunately, a lot of people, and even maybe we would have thought the same way years and years ago, that what this type of stuff is pseudoscience. Some people just don't believe it. They think I have Lyme disease, I need to take a pill or do some detox protocol. And we're not saying you don't need to do that. Like, some of the stuff is beneficial or whatever, but they think that that's the only way out, and that the other stuff this stuff does not matter, when in all reality, based off of what we have seen with ourselves and what Josh has seen, mostly Josh has seen with other people. I mean, he's been in the Lyme community, being one of those social justice warriors many, many years ago.
Yeah.
And so he's talked to thousands of Lyme patients and chronically ill people. And this is the type of stuff that really gets people healthy. Unfortunately, there is no magic pill. There is no magical cure for chronic Lyme or any of these other chronic illnesses. Like, you really do have to do the work, and you really have to put it on your own, in your own hands. And that's unfortunately the way it is. But again, it can be, like Josh said, it can be a victim mentality thing, or it can be an empowering thing. And we hope that people choose the empowering mentality of, like, okay, this is what I have now, let me take it into my own hands and do what I can do to help myself, my body heal itself. So
and just real quick, to protect us from these social justice warriors that we talked about, because we seem to get a lot of critics, is we totally understand that chronic illnesses have things that are cardiac involvement, neuro. We totally understand that, and we sympathize. We definitely do.
We've dealt with a lot of those.
We have, and we're obviously not saying don't go see a cardiologist if you're having heart problems or anything like that. Obviously, let's go see your doctors. We're not. What we're talking about is, okay, so say you do have that. Don't let that become your identity. Don't let the fear of, okay, now I'm having heart palpitations, or don't let that fear consume you to where it literally becomes your identity. And now you're not living because you're inundated with fear. That's unfortunately the part we saw is we got a lot of people that, oh, you don't know what it's like to sit around on the couch with but darling, we do. We really
Exactly.
We understand every part of it. So, it is, being sick sucks. But like I said, the silver lining of being able to become awake and understanding, I think, some of the true meanings of life is a great silver lining to pull out of it. So.
And I always tell people, like, yes, you of course can do the physical and the mental. I combine both in my practice. Like, I run testing. I tell them exactly the patterns that I see, but my my point is, don't put all of your eggs in that basket, because that
Yeah.
won't get you well. Now, the combination of changing
Mhm.
your life, changing your identity, changing how you see health and wellness,
Yeah.
you know, that is where it's going to happen. It's not going to happen just from the supplements and the diet and the meds and all that stuff.
Yeah, and like Josh said, we take things, we take
Yeah.
supplements, take herbs, we do supportive care for our bodies
Yeah.
as well. We don't just think, just thinking our way well is always, just going to completely reverse everything. It is, there is always supportive care that we can do to help our bodies. There's nothing wrong with taking antibiotics or taking any of these things, but like you said, it just not relying on them solely to get you
Right.
better. We have done all of that stuff where we don't do anything else. We try all these new treatments, like relying on them, waiting around months and months and months, see if they help. And
Mhm.
it unfortunately has never gotten us anywhere until we incorporated this type of healing.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a really awesome conversation. I'm so glad to have gotten to know you guys a little bit better. Is there anything
Sure.
else you wanted to add before we wrap up the show?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
it's-
We definitely appreciate you
we
taking the
appre-
time to have
yeah.
us today.
Yeah, it's been awesome on your on this podcast with you. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
my
having me.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely keep in touch. And for everybody listening, all the information will be in the show notes as well.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone. I am just so thrilled that you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This has been a huge passion project for me and super therapeutic on top of that, helping me to use my voice and connect with other like-minded individuals. So if you're enjoying the podcast, please like and subscribe. Please share on social media or with your audience or friends or loved ones. I truly appreciate it. It does take a lot of time and financial costs to run the podcast, and it is not a moneymaker, let me tell you. So if you are enjoying this, I would truly appreciate your support just by sending me a post, a like, and a subscribe. Thank you so much.